Welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have one of our favorite guests. We have Dr. Angela Celeste May. We know her as our clinical, our organizational, and our forensically trained psychologist. She's currently the president of A.M. May and Associates, a counseling, consulting, and coaching company, a member of the board of trustees for the Michigan Health Council, a member of the Drug-Free Youth in Detroit Advisory Council, and faculty at Wayne County Community College District. She is also an international vocalist, instrumentalist, and recording artist. And if that wasn't enough, she's also founder and president of Celeste Productions, author of the book Freedom: What is the Experience of Living Without Negative Self-Imposed Limitations? And she's a public speaker. Good evening, Dr. Angie. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Good evening. Excuse me. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. So let's get right to our topic. Our topic for today is hope and joy that lasts. You know, Dr. Angie, I don't know about you, but I cringe when I get ready to turn the news on. I cringe when I open up my social media, when I look at a newspaper, because we don't know what we're going to see. And every day it seems as if there is a mass shooting in America. I don't know where we are. And I don't, and I hate to say it, I don't even want to know where we are, but I know that we are somewhere about to beat where we were in 2021 in terms of mass shootings. Here in Michigan, we had nice weather a couple of weeks ago. It was really nice. And we had 4 shootings in a weekend in one particular area in Detroit. There's so much going on in the world. You have the war in Ukraine, you have economic concerns, you have people that just seem to be angry and depressed and just not in a good space. And Dr. Angie, one of the things that we talk about is how our faith sustains us. And as Christians, we know we can rely on God, we rely on Bibles, we rely on scripture to help us get through. What would you say to someone who is struggling right now, who does not necessarily have a faith or have a belief in anything per se, looking to have that hope and joy, especially young people? When you are going away to school, you think, oh, I got them out of high school, they survived, we got them into a good college. And then Michigan State University happened, where a random shooter came and just chose some people randomly, not because they did anything, not that that makes it better if someone does something, but at least we can say, oh, okay, I understand. This was something totally random. These were people that were just doing exactly what college students are supposed to do. And this university was marred by this. What would you say to someone who's like, where am I supposed to find the hope and joy while we're going through all of this?
It's a huge and extremely important question. And I would say it has multifaceted, multi-layered answers, plural. Particularly, like you're saying, speaking to our young people. I've said this at times, we've both said this at times, and I've heard others say this as well. Particularly, you mentioned that we're Christians, of course, which we are. And I started to say, and we're also Black folks.
Yes.
We're Black folks. I'm going to get mine too.
Very good.
We're Black folks. So you don't have to be Black. I'm not saying that this is only for Black folks, but what we can all do is look to the lessons and the strengths and the power of the legacy of Black folks, specifically here in America. And the reason I say that is because I kind of thought this myself, and then I heard someone say on one of the news programs or something, it was a pundit or someone saying, well, for Black folks, this is nothing new.
Right.
You could be lynched at any time. You know, I don't have the statistics, at the top of my head, but you've heard the numbers. So many lynchings from when we were emancipated as a people in this country. you know, all the way through the 1940s, 1950s, even early 1960s, and maybe beyond. So much so that congressperson after congressperson has pushed for getting an anti-lynching law passed in our country. If you have to try to get an anti-lynching law, that suggests that that's a whole lot of people, innocent people, who are being killed in this manner, and you know, for nothing that they did other than being Black or befriending someone who is Black in America, African American. So while it's a gruesome, awful part of our history, it does, I suggest that it does give us some light and some hints and some lessons to follow. So for African Americans in this country, how have our African American young people, old people, and everything in between, every one of us in between, how have we historically been able to navigate not just surviving in this country? Certainly there are those who have suffered, we didn't call it mental health issues at the time, of course, but there definitely, it's not to say that we're, you know, Teflon people who haven't suffered from anxiety and depression. We know that we carry trauma, you know, generation after generation, and all of that is true. However, generally speaking, as a people, we're still here. And how did we stay here with joy? We have our sorrows, but we have joy. Some lessons for young people to look at, of all backgrounds, from our African American history is, first and foremost, like you said, we have taught our people, generally speaking, as a tradition, we have passed down through the generations the idea of having a relationship with your maker, a relationship with God. So while for many of us that has meant and does mean Christianity, for someone who may not have a belief system, there is power, and I say this as a psychologist, as someone who studies behavior, who studies the way that we respond and react to things. Research has shown that all of that has shown that people who attend to and pay attention to and try to learn more about their connection to everything else around them, we call it God, your maker, nature, all of that. Research has shown that they are more resilient, which means they bounce back quicker, and are able to continue to bounce back when they're knocked down by life, when they have tragedy, when they are faced with great challenges. So that spiritual piece, studying, talking to people, trying to search internally and find and pray and meditate and all of those things to try to find a greater connection to what we consider your maker, has been proven to be something that helps with our resilience and our ongoing joy. Why is that? Well, for one thing, we hear people say that if I feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself, part of some bigger plan, it helps to make more sense of life, more sense of why things happen, more sense of where I belong. Part of the pain and isolation, I think that a lot of people feel, and a lot of young people feel, is that they're asking questions, valid questions that many people ask about, well, how do I fit into all of this? And then that speaks to purpose. Unfortunately, sadly, like as we've talked about, we've seen more young people harming themselves, taking their lives or trying to. And a lot of times for those who are feeling that way, if you ask them, why, what's going on? A lot of times they will say, not just that I'm depressed, but they'll also say, and they may not have those words depressed, but, feeling that I don't have any hope. But they'll also say, I don't see the purpose. I don't feel a sense of purpose. So connecting to your maker, connecting to something bigger than yourself helps to give a sense of purpose, a sense of why I'm here, and therefore why I should continue to be here. And then to find joy in that purpose. Something else that helps with that also is connecting with other people, connecting with causes, connecting with, again, that idea of things that are bigger than yourself. As we've talked about before, if we take our pain and try to help alleviate someone else's pain, whether it's giving to a charity or getting involved in the community in some way, those things can help a lot with our joy and ongoing joy, because when we give to other people, it feeds ourselves. When we give to other people, it's a tangible way to see how we make a positive impact in the world. And again, it goes back to that, oh, I do have a purpose. There are people that I'm helping. So those are a couple of very important ways that we can help ourselves, help our young people, and encourage each other to not just survive, but to thrive, and recognize that that even though we may not know the answers right now, that that there maybe there is some logic and some reason to some of this. There's a couple of things I'd like to say, but
Yes,
I didn't want to, as you know, I will go on. A couple other added things I do want to say also, and that is when you were talking about this ongoing joy and continued joy. Laughter is a very, very key part of that. It's the key part of that. Sometimes you have to really actively look for the joy. That's another thing. You have to actively look for it, especially in these times, like you said, when we're surrounded, everywhere you look, there's another, seems to be another tragedy. But also, if you're looking for it, everywhere you look, you'll also find, but you have to look for it, the joyful things. You'll look and you'll begin to notice, oh, you know what, maybe everybody's not angry. I just saw that young guy, that teenager help that, that stereotypical little old lady, or I saw that little old lady helping that teenager,
right.
And mentoring that teenager. It really is all around us, joy and purposefulness and people doing good and positive things for each other. But we have to, that's another thing, kind of train ourselves to look for that and see it so that we can recognize it also.
And those are excellent points, Dr. Angie. And I want to bring up a story that always warms my heart every time I come across it. There's a story of a young man who texted a woman, but he texted the wrong number, thinking he was texting his grandmother. And it turned out to be some random stranger who was an older woman. And they ended up developing a relationship. His own grandmother ended up, I guess, passing away. And so they began to spend holidays. And he is a young African-American male, and she is an older Caucasian woman. And it brought them both so much joy. And so you're right, you can have moments where you can be purposeful and you can find joy and you can make a connection, especially in unlikely places, where so much of what we see on the news and read about and hear politically, where everybody's just like, I can't stand those people, and those people don't like, and if you sit and listen to that, you would think that everyone hates each other. And in fact, they don't. Now, I want to go back to something that you said. You talked about finding purpose and having that joy. So a lot of people will ask the question, well, how do I find my purpose, Dr. Angie? And does my purpose look like your purpose, or does it look like Kimberly's purpose?
Great question. It may, and then again, it may be something completely and totally different. I think that there are a few different ways. There are a few different ways that happens. It's not the same for everyone, of course, but even if you think about careers, like, making career decisions, or what direction will I go into? A lot of times I tell students, tell them all the time, and non-students alike, we'll start with, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? Oftentimes people think about the things that they enjoy doing, and they assume that can't, well, that's just my hobby. It's not that they don't want it to be the thing that they do to make a living. I mean, some people don't, but oftentimes people think that, well, that's just, quote unquote, just what I do for fun. I can't, they think that they can't make a living out of that. So, for example, someone may say, oh, well, you know what, I tell you what brings me joy. I love gardening. Oh my goodness, I love gardening. I just lose myself in it. It's meditative for me. I can just relax and just, get in there and all that. And assume that they, but I'm looking for what I can do for a living. Well, people do garden for a living. There are landscape architects. There are, people who work on these huge greenhouses, and, there's a whole horticulture, area of work and career that is possible. Everything from studying plants to, creating beautiful arrangements. I forget this in my own history that I had a few minutes. It was after I graduated undergrad. I was getting ready to go to grad school. And I think I did it for a summer or something. I had a few minutes for a few months working in a flower shop. I always forget that I did that. So I learned a lot about, working in a flower shop. It was really, it was cool. Cannot work a register to save my life. That is obviously not my strength and art.
It's good to know what you're not good at. So
you need to know
what you're good at. Yeah.
I mean, I believe that if I study the cash register, I can finally get it every time. But I learned a lot. So there are lots of options, but you have to start with openness. Start with an open mind. And I would say start with that, and then start with, what would I like to do? What do I enjoy doing? Do I enjoy working out and being physical? Do I enjoy being outside? For every answer, there are lots and lots of fortunately, we live in a place and time where there are options to maybe get into that. So I think that's the most important place to start. And then, of course, if you're still not sure, you make a little list, write a couple of those things down or keep them in mind, and then start to look around and then get involved in something. Even if you're doing work over here, maybe the job you're involved in is not exciting you, it's not filling you, but it's paying the bills. While you're doing that, if you can, take an hour on a Saturday, or take a little time when you're able to, and volunteer to help plant some trees, or volunteer to work with the disabled, or whatever it may be, and see how you feel about doing some of those things. Those can help connect you with what part of your purpose. And I use career and work as an example, but we know that so often our purpose is bigger than that. It's more than that. It's about who you are day to day. And your career and your work can reflect that. But separate from that, just think about, this is another important thing, think about how you impact people. There are ways to impact people, like you were just sharing that wonderful story. I think I remember that story and saying that, which was wonderful. Just connecting with people, just spreading some of that joy is part of all of our purpose, actually. I think I like to think, whether we realize it or not. And maybe you're not that joyful kind of person, but you've got some skills. You're really good at fixing things or whatever. If you, go, just as an example, that idea of volunteering or spending some time, go to the local church, and, they're working on the basement or something, or trying to get the roof together, and you're really good at that. You can take 45 minutes or an hour and share your skills, and you take your tools and help them with that. That's all part of your purpose, because you're giving back, and really makes a difference. It makes such a difference even when you walk away, even late, you never know how that reverberates. So I would say that finding our purpose is, and think of it as a journey, it's ongoing, and we learn more things about our purpose as we go. But definitely every one of us has one and probably more purposes. Every one of us helps to make the difference, in this world. And one other thing too, getting back to that idea of part of what's so anxiety producing and depressing and upsetting for people is that when they do see these random shootings, it feels just that, it's random. It's just like for no reason. It's out of the blue sky. Well, as those of us who study behavior, our expertise is in behavior. One of my expertise is in understanding behavior. And for that matter, just from a Christian perspective, a prayerful perspective, it's never random. It's never, we may have no idea what the reason is, but there's a reason. Let's take Michigan State, and I don't mean it doesn't mean it's a good reason, but let's take State, like you were saying, students minding their own business, and this guy just walks in, doesn't know them, and starts shooting. Well, we don't always have the luxury of being able to do this. I shouldn't say luxury, but we may not always know until after the fact. Sometimes we may never know the reason why. But in this case, as they investigated after, because he took his own life after he killed those innocent people, we found out that he had been isolated for a long time. We found out, what else did we find out? They found out that he had been spending hours and hours on the internet, on these really toxic, negative websites. And he, began to kind of like spiral,
he was fired from there. He worked there for a short period of time and it didn't work out. And he was fired and he was angry. You're right.
He was angry. Yep. And then he continued. And it's not that we get angry or get frustrated. Okay, that part, because some people may say, well, I've been fired. I don't just go and randomly do it. It's not that he was fired so much as how did he handle it? What did he do with it? He went and fed that anger even more until it grew and grew. And then he became, he was losing touch with reality. You remember he was going to go fight the demons and all this kind of stuff. And what, if the Lord sends you on a mission, he'll take care of where the demon go. You don't have to get the AK. Yeah, exactly. So it is sad and tragic, but again, I see a measure of hope even there, because the better and the more we understand the whys, then we can, as people have been talking about, do more to try to combat that. We have the legislation part, we have the gun, that's an ongoing thing, the gun lobby and all of that. And then of course, the mental health aspect. People were asking questions, why didn't people catch it? We're learning what we need to look for, pay more attention when people are isolated, pay more attention to how you treat people, even in a firing, et cetera. So there's some reasons there.
And though you're right, Dr. Angie, those are great reasons. And that's a great explanation for that. In my own personal neighborhood where I live, there was a shootout on a block or two behind me because someone made a wrong pizza delivery. I don't know if you remember hearing that was in my neighborhood. And it was two neighbors that apparently don't get along. And food, because it's, you order food because everybody orders Uber Eats, Grubhub, whatever. Someone delivered the pizza to the wrong house. And the family that received the pizza was not the family that ordered it. The family that ordered it, I guess, went over to the family that took their pizza and said, hey, you have our food. Some words were exchanged. And then a gun was pulled out. And folks started shooting at people over a wrong pizza delivery. But it wasn't just about a pizza delivery. One of the things that we found out is there were issues with, wrong deliveries multiple times. People parking in people's driveways or blocking people's driveways. This was a long line of escalating events till it got to the point where someone lost touch with reality and decided to pull out a gun. I want to flip that thought on its head though, because you mentioned looking at what are your skills and your strengths. And one of my skills and strengths is my voice. And, a lot of times people will say, there are these memes, bossy girls make for great women leaders, or vocal girls make for great women communicators. And I was one of those children who wasn't necessarily a great communicator, but I was always advocating for somebody. I was always trying to stand up and say, well, that's not fair. Well, in life, that's helped me professionally to be able to share and advocate for those. It's also helped me become a better storyteller and a better author because I'm able to tell stories. So I want to encourage people as you listen to this, that no matter how minor or small a skill might be, it may still prove to be something valuable. You may have a chatty Cathy, and I have a couple of children that are, one of my oldest son is the chatty Cathy. And I told him, I said, when you get to be an adult, you're either an attorney or a politician. He's like, Mom, I'm not going to be either of those things. I said,
or in radio or something.
Right. I'm like, but you always love to advocate for people and you're always talking. And I said, and it's universal.
Mhm.
And so just encouraging people, walk in that purpose, walk in whatever it is that you do naturally. You don't
Mhm.
have to expend any extra energy doing it. If you're
Mhm.
that person who can organize things well, look at organizational management or, something in organization, because that's
Mhm.
probably a skill set for you. If you are a person who is gifted at writing and
Mhm.
that's all that you do, there are so many different things that you can do with writing that it's just
Absolutely.
the sky is the limit. But we have to teach our kids and we have to be open as adults to
Mhm.
identifying those things. So,
Absolutely.
Dr. Angie, before we get out of here, I want you to re-emphasize what you said about finding that purpose so that you can have that hope and that joy so that we can navigate through life.
Well, it is so important. First and foremost, that we all have a purpose.
Yeah,
All of us. We're not here by accident.
right.
Even if your parents didn't plan you or whatever, there's a reason that you're here, and you do make a difference. You
Yes.
do make a difference. Um, there was a story that I saw, a real quick story I ran across, where the young guy was telling a story about how he was a junior high, I think, or something, middle school or freshman in high school, something like that. And
Mhm.
he was with his friends and everything, and he noticed a very studious young boy who had all these, was taking all these books home from school. I don't know if you saw this story. He was taking all these books home from school, and kids were bullying him. Knocked him over, knocked his books over. So he ran over, as your son would do, as we do,
Mhm.
to try to pick up his books and everything. And so from that day, he kind of befriended him, and the young man ended up spending the weekend with his family because they were going out, and so they developed a friendship over the years. And so the young man, he was very studious. He became the valedictorian. He grew, he wore glasses, and he became a great athlete, and actually became very popular, even though he was a bullied child at first.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until the valedictorian speech that the young guy made, as graduating from high school, that
Mhm.
the friend who befriended him really found out his impact on
Wow.
him the day that he ran over to help him pick up his books, because he told the story. He said, back when I was freshman, blah, 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 he took all those books and he told them, he said, I had cleaned out my locker, because he was going to go home and kill himself. And he
Wow.
didn't want his parents to have to come and clean out his locker. And
Wow.
because the student ran over to help him, and just that day, that one act saved his life and the entire trajectory of his parents, all of that.
Mhm.
So that's why I say, we may not know. Don't assume you're not making an impact. Don't assume that you're not fulfilling your purpose. Well, we may not be walking in it at times, but don't assume that you don't have a powerful impact just because you may not see it in the moment. And
Mhm.
sometimes we may never know, but it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. And a couple other things I want to say too
Yep.
about this. We're not quite, there's such a feeling of helplessness in all these things as you're talking about. But I would also encourage people that we're not as helpless as we think we are or feel that we are in this country. And I grew up around this. My mom was this way. My dad was this way as well. And my grandmother, my husband is this way. Never knows a stranger. I mean, never knows a stranger.
Mhm.
Always, you know, if you see somebody strike up a conversation, if you see someone feeling bad,
Mhm.
how you doing? Okay. Even if they snap at you, leave me alone. Okay, well, I just wanted to, whatever the case.
How you doing? Have a
Um,
great day. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Have a great day, or that type of thing. I think about the story you were telling of your neighbors,
Mhm.
and I was changing out one of those neighbors for you or my mom or me. It wouldn't get to that.
Not at
It
all.
takes two people to tangle.
Mhm.
The first couple of times you try to have a conversation, they didn't want to. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. God bless you. Okay, whatever.
Mhm.
In order to have a fight, you need somebody else. Otherwise, you just fight in the air.
Yep.
Now, does that automatically mean that it can't escalate because of the one person? No. But oftentimes the interactions between the two parties, that's another thing. It can, really help it, just go off the rails. So that's another thing, just in our walk. And it takes some internal self-work to do that, because it's not always easy. People, I won't say people push our buttons. We allow people to push our buttons. So some other things that can help with our hope and ongoing joy is the way that we walk through the world. If you're not seeing the joy, you bring the joy. If, you see how people will pay it forward at the grocery store or going through the gas station or whatever the case, it in any ways that you can help put a smile or give someone some comfort or whatever the case, that helps. If every one of us does that, that helps bring the temperature down for our society as a whole. We may not see it, but an avalanche it needs one snowflake to get started, and then two, and then three. So that's one thing I want to say. And the other thing, as far as our power, I just want to throw this out too, and that is voting, 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 voting.
Yes.
It makes a huge difference. We do have a voice. And that's why I say that, circling back to the beginning of our conversation, there's a multi-leveled answers to this. It's our decision, conscious decision to be joyful, look for joyful things, spread the joy, work on our purpose, like you said, walk in that, the things that we do naturally. But then also, like I said, exercising our voices. Even though we have issues in Detroit, for sure, that's nothing new. I'm so sorry for what happened at your neighborhood, but I didn't think of this until I went recently to I helped with putting on a panel discussion with my sorority. And it was a Know Your Rights. It was a Know Your Rights panel discussion. It was very informative. And knowing your rights, particularly when you are stopped by police, different things, it was a very good panel discussion. And one of the things that they brought out, not that Detroit is perfect in any way. And yes, we had Michigan State as well, but by and large, you don't hear a lot of the mass shooting kinds of things going on in our state. You're not seeing a lot of that. And I've noticed that, but when they talked about it in this forum, the point that they were making is, because of our attorney general, because of our governor, because of the people we voted in, because of the people's voice, they are, we do have more stringent gun laws. We do have things in place that can help with some of that. So from exercising your voice, recognize your purpose. If you don't know what it is, do what Dr. Kim said. Think about what you do naturally and build on that. And spreading that joy and love around you and helping other people will help. All of those things together and more will help. And again, where we started from, work on your connection to your spiritual parts of yourself. If you think you don't have any, I'm here to tell you you do. And go and just work on that, ask questions, research, pray, meditate, etc. I encourage you to read the scripture, but find those things that connect with you and help you to ask more questions.
Excellent, Dr. Angie. That's why we have you as our favorite guest, because you just tell many great things down and you make it where it's easy to understand. We can digest it and we can put it to work in our lives. Thank you for being on the Kim B. Davis Show. Before we get out of here, tell us how we can find you, how we can follow you on social media, and all the wonderful things you have coming up.
Thank you so much. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So definitely those places. And I'm still on Twitter a little bit here and there. So you can find me in all those social media places. You could also, like Kim said, I'm an author, I'm a professional musician and vocalist, and I'm also a writer and everything, as well as psychologist. So on those different platforms, you'll see those different things. So come and follow. You can also find me at A.M. May, that's M-A-Y, associates.com, and that is the website for my sister Michelle and my company, A.M. May and Associates Incorporated. So AMMayassociates.com, that's our website. You also can find me at reverbnation.com, and that's, you'll find some of my music and my albums and things there. And my book, Freedom: What is the Experience of Living Out There? It is Without Negative Self-Imposed Limitations. That you can find on Amazon. You can find my albums on iTunes. So I'm out there. I continue to teach music here in the Metro Detroit area at the Marygrove Conservancy. I teach voice and piano. I do teach some piano virtually as well. You can reach out to me on any of those, send me a private message on any of those social media platforms. And also for music or any music related bookings and all those things, Celeste, MUS1. So that's CELESTE, M as in Mary, or as in music, US and the number 1 at AOL.com. So yeah, for inquiries. And what do I have going? I've got so much stuff going on. I just did a training in Lansing. So I'm going up to Lansing to help advocate for social justice and things with Alpha Kappa Alpha, NAACP, and Jack and Jill Partnership Organization. That's tomorrow. I have performances coming up that I'm not announcing yet, that I'm working on. So, ongoing, my sister and I, the company, we do coaching, professional, personal, and I do doctoral coaching. We do creative coaching as well. So all of that information you can find again at AMAssociates.com.
Excellent, Dr. Angie. Thank you again for joining us. I know that next month we'll have another exciting topic, so we can't wait till you come back next month. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. You know me as Kimberly Batchelor Davis. I am your host. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere on social media. And it's Kimberly Batchelor Davis. Batchelor is spelled BATCHELOR. You can see this show at youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can hear this show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and Wisdom. You can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. And as always, remember, be magnificent.